get into a little bit more reaction now, shall we? Joining me now is Joy Natt, who is a KPMG Trade and Customs Partner. Joy, first of all, thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking some time. You know, after hearing from the President and the Prime Minister earlier, what do you make of some of the comments and some of the rhetoric, in particular about the trade and the relationship between Canada and the U.S.?
My thoughts? I mean, tariffs are casting a really long shadow over the Canadian economy. And if today's meeting shows us anything, it shows us that negotiating trade deals is completely different today than it has been in the past. We definitely need a deal, but I think Canadians need to be realistic in what we get for a deal. This administration in the United States is very transactional, where in every negotiation, someone has to be seen as winning and someone has to be seen as losing. We need to move very cautiously in that kind of environment. And I think there's a new reality on the table, and that is there is a price to access the U.S. market. And I think the days of zero tariffs could potentially be numbered. When the CUSMA comes up for negotiation, who knows? Who knows if zero will be the platform of tariffs in that renegotiation, or whether or not it'll be a number above zero.
Right. And again, you know, someone else making the same point, too, about the fact about how different this is now, too, and how different this relationship is. And it's about winning. Someone has to win. Someone has to lose. And the U.S. president clearly does not like to lose. Are you expecting any news from today? You know, there was the possibility of some relief from sectoral tariffs, you know, possibly steel and aluminum, you know, with the recent softwood lumber tariffs, too, going into effect. The president talking last night about small and medium-sized trucking companies, too. Again, putting tariffs on that industry possibly next month. Are you expecting to hear anything this afternoon, or do you think this was just a meeting to hopefully advance some of what's coming?
I mean, who knows what's actually happening behind closed doors? Am I expecting something today? No, I don't think so. But am I expecting something potentially in the next few days? Maybe. You know, a couple of weeks ago, Prime Minister Carney said that what's happening now is not a trade disruption, it's a rupture. And I think we need to understand that these negotiations are not like normal negotiations. So having a meeting like today, of course, we need to do that sort of thing. It's absolutely fundamental that our Prime Minister get along with the U.S. President, and I do think they have a rapport. We need to understand that the negotiations and what's happening behind closed doors right now is something that Canada's never faced before. You know, we hear the Prime Minister say things like 85% of the goods that go from Canada to the United States qualify for CUSMA. And that's probably true when you're talking about the value of goods that goes to the United States, but not the volume of goods that's going to the United States. Let's face it, our lumber, our automotive, our steel and aluminum sectors are really being hammered right now. And as a country, we need to support them. You know, and Canada has to, we're at a point in our history where we have to ask ourselves a fundamental question. What cost are we willing to pay for our sovereignty? And what do I mean by that? I mean, paying 2% of our gross domestic product on NATO, defending the Arctic. And in a recent survey that KPMG did of 500 senior Canadian business leaders, 96% of them said they view the biggest risk right now that Canada faces as overdependence on the U.S. market, and that Canada needs to diversify its markets. You put those three things on the table, that's the cost of our independence. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to watch what comes out over the next few hours or the next few days. And I'm really hoping that we can get to a place where, to quote the president, Canada's going to be really happy. I hope that that's true.
Yeah, we'll certainly see. I want to ask you, too, at least at this point, because you make a couple of good points. Even Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been calling for stronger countermeasures, at least for right now. But the Prime Minister in particular touched on the investment of $1 trillion in the United States. And we heard Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre harping on this. Where, I think one of, if not the first thing out of his mouth, were these comments that the Prime Minister made that that's happening in the U.S. and not in Canada. Your thoughts on, again, on that comment, too? That would double what Canada has invested in the U.S. from the last 5 years for next 5 years.
So my thoughts on that are that it's Canadian companies that are making that investment. And yes, the investment dollars per se are going into the United States, but those dollars are enriching Canadians. And Canada has always been one of the #1 foreign investors in the United States. That's not new. We've always been one of the top countries that invests in the United States. And in the past, it's never hurt us. So why would it hurt us to continue on that trend now? Dollars being put aside, I mean, it's easy enough to toss around particular numbers. The Canadian business community is the one that's going to have to step up and put that $1 trillion on the table if that's what they decide to do. But like I was saying earlier, we live in a new century, we live in a new environment, and diversifying our trade away from the United States. And when I say away, I just want to pull back for a second. 77 cents out of every dollar Canada exports goes to the United States. Mm-hmm. We're always going to be a major trading partner with the United States. But maybe looking at that 77 cents and pulling it down to somewhere closer to 50, maybe that's something that Canadians and Canadian industry leaders need to look at moving forward. So some of that investment might go abroad, but investing in the United States, we've always done it. We'll continue to do it. And in the past, it's enriched Canadians. So I'm not particularly worried about that.
Joy Natt, KPMG Trade and Customs Partner. We appreciate this today, Joy. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.